I've just been doing my morning meditation practice, and I was having a bit of fun and adventures talking to myself in the mirror, which is part of one of my agreements a year long, is to 5 minutes look at myself in the mirror and talk to myself. And sometimes it's in my thoughts, sometimes it's out loud, and it just occurred to me, sometimes some lovely things float up out of my unconscious, and one of them was that there's an underlying sense in me that all I want from life is to have fun, play, and be loved. That and be loving. That sort of energy. And there was a little bit of wistfulness, sadness around that, because obviously life isn't, or at the moment isn't like that for everybody, and it isn't for me some of the time. And it just occurred to me just how I talk to myself, this secret world that we have inside of here that's really powerful. And if you haven't woken up to the fact of listening to how you talk to yourself, it's a really important part of life, is like noticing how you talk to yourself, because from that place, and if there's times I heard myself say out loud yesterday, "You stupid woman," and then I laughed after. Because the person that we're hardest on ourselves is often us. Hello, whoever's come on. And, those ways of talking to ourselves can either be really wonderful and out, sort of expansive, or they can be really self-crushing and diminishing. And we get to choose. And it sounds strange to say that I get to choose my thoughts, and the truth of it is that I do. And these thoughts that I have that, like the ones that you latch onto, are generally the ones that are self-critical or even critical in general, looking for what's wrong in the world and making everything wrong. And that's not, that's not hard to do, is it, to be fair? And yet we get what we look for. So you'd see more wrong the more you're looking for it. So it's like, how do I keep a focus on looking for love? And in that global sense, of what love is: joy, kindness, fun, adventures, curiosity, appreciation, gratitude, all those things fall under love. And then there's all those other things, that fear, which is critical, judgment, harshness, punishment. Isn't it funny? Well, maybe it isn't. Well, I still think it's funny, curiously funny, that most of us move away from punishment. And so, what do I mean by that? That most of us think that being told off or being punished is going to change behaviour. We're still in that mindset. And even though we might intellectually know that actually to get somebody to, not to get them to change, but to help them to expand is much easier coming from a place of love and encouragement rather than criticism and punishment. And yet our whole systems are set up that if you fall out of line, you get punished. And then do we wonder why we go off into being devious and telling lies? And the one person that you can't tell lies to is myself. That there's certain truth in, well, I can kid myself. But this concentrating on the thoughts that we have, and moving away from being critical, and looking and actively choosing to look for what's right in the world, because there's a lot that's right. It's just we have to want to look for it. And then that feeds something inside of me. It feeds the joy, love, peace and contentment inside of me, more than trying to deal with the shit that's going on in the world, and trying to change that in some way, trying to force my opinions or my what we should do is and what is needed to be done is and all of that sort of stuff. Isn't it terrible? You know, that just makes it even more, it just gives it energy. And I know, intellectually I know this, the practice isn't as easy as I might make it sound. It is about training myself to look for what's lovely in the world. And then commenting on that and it all starts with me. You know, how do I speak to myself? How do I encourage myself? How do I say loving things to myself? You know, instead of being this harsh, you should have done better, you shouldn't have said that. You know, all that goes on in there at times. It's like gently retraining my brain into thinking a different way. Because I am, and I don't need to convince myself or anybody, I am a lovely person. And so is everybody else on the planet. It's just that underneath, even that Mr. Trump is a lovely person, underneath all the programs, beliefs, behaviours that are on the outside of him, he's just like you and me. We're all in it together. He's just off on his own trek and some of us are off on a different trek. So becoming aware of how I talk to myself in my head is the first step. How do I wake up in the morning? How do I go to sleep? How do I put myself to sleep on a night? And how do I wake myself up in the morning? And what do I do with the bit in between? How can I play and have adventures? It's been funny this morning. I think Audrey's on. Hello. Yes, it does. Peace starts within. You're so right, lovely lady. This morning, I don't know if you wander around without any clothes on, but I do, and I always have done. And this morning, I thought I'll just nip down and sort the kitchen out. We've got quite a high window, and it overlooks the school. There's no, I never draw curtains in my houses. I've never done it. Childhood thing. We never. Well, in some rooms we didn't have any curtains in, or at least I don't remember. Mum never drew curtains. She had nets, did Mum? But and I had nets in the first house, but then I never had any after that. So it's always been dodging around. Stephen's learnt, he pulls his curtains. It's kind of interesting watching the men in my life, how they've accommodated my tendency to, my children as well, witness me hoovering up with no clothes on. There's a lot of stuff coming out, isn't there? So today, when I was cleaning up in the kitchen, this gentleman walking his dog walked by and he was looking in, and Silly Lily had put the light on. Silly Lily, is there such a word as that? And our eyes briefly met, and then I just ducked down underneath the windowsill and thought, I wonder what he actually saw. I went up to Stephen and said, somebody's just seen me, a man walking his dog. I said, do you think he liked what he saw from this part up? And Stephen says, yeah, I'm sure he did. So where was I before that? I don't know, I got distracted. Oh yes, fun and adventures and being playful. And when we go out, most of the time I will speak to somebody and have a little bit of a play. So we're in this shop, I think I might have mentioned it last night. We're in this shop in Haworth, and the shop is still fitted out with the old style counters and shelves, and it was an apothecary. I think I've said that right. So there was this counter and there was a gentleman stood behind it, and his wife or partner was stood next, and I just went up to him and said, what are you serving today? And I see you've got some bottles of poison behind you there. No, can you tell me what's the ingredients in there? He played along, bless him. And his girlfriend was giggling, and yeah, there's a thing around being slightly embarrassed that a stranger is engaging with you, and then this capacity to play. And there's a part of me that looks for that, and on lots of occasions, you know, I will look for the playfulness. And in the past I probably didn't do it very, very refined. I was a little bit clumsy with it, and as I've got older it's come a lot easier, you know, and I can make comments and draw people into some special moment between us. And I love that about me. That's one of the things that I do love. And so this practice of looking at myself in the mirror and talking for 5 minutes time, there's a little timer that goes off after I've done it, is a year-long agreement. And the conversations that I've had with myself have been, so far, have been very mixed. I started January the 1st. So a whole year of doing that. And it's allowing me to engage with myself in a very different way, because I don't see myself, unless I'm on here, I can see me now, but mostly I'm looking at this little circle so that I'm looking at you. And, you know, I don't see myself from the outside. I don't see myself. So to actually talk to myself as if I am, there's a lot of us in here, there's a lot of Sundays, a lot of different versions and histories, and my little girl is still in there, you know. My little girl's still inside me, and she's the one that wants to play and be in love, you know, be in that loving, kind, caring, playful energy. And I think the practices that I'm doing at the moment are really allowing me. And there's a softness in me, I can feel it. There's a softness in me this morning as a result of the practices that I've done this morning, that I've found it easier. You know, sometimes when you have meditations or a practice, you find it easier to immerse, to be in it. Your body, there's a sort of like a little switch in me that gently sort of like flips over, and it's, somebody used the word soporific, and it's a little bit like that. There's a soporificness that comes into me, an expansion, a sort of like receiving type sense, I guess from source, that is allowing me to expand out of, I was going to say out of my humanness and into something else, but that isn't quite right. Maybe it's deepening into my humanness. You know, allowing myself to connect with my soul, with all the parts of me that make up this wonderful being, this extraordinary being that I am, just as we all are, and connect with that part of me that is magical and wonderful, that gets buried under sometimes under my to-do lists, my history, my self-perceptions when I'm not feeling good about myself. I think it's inevitable that as humans we have judgment as a quality, because we need to make assessments, you know, like we need to make choices and discern what's our next best move here. So I think it will never get rid of it. It's just, how can I work with it? Like, using judgment as a vehicle for growth is probably one of the most profound vehicles to choose, because we all have it. I don't know anybody who isn't who doesn't use judgment in their life. It wouldn't be wise not to. And it's how we use judgment, and how I use judgment. And I can use judgment to make my world look grey and miserable, or I can use my judgment to make it look like I'm living on a shiny star, and God knows who, and does anybody know why we're here and how we got here and where we're going? Because I certainly don't. And I'm enjoying the people that I'm travelling with. We're on a journey together. All of us. Even the ones that we've labelled off as baddies. It was so much more simple in the 60s, wasn't it, when there was goodies and baddies? In terms of that label. Now we have so many other labels, it's like unbelievable. And I would consider that I used to be a baddie. I used to be one of the baddies. I suspect that I would have got labelled with that N word back then, and that I would have probably been given all sorts of drugs to help me to be normal. And have you noticed that normal is like flat? That, like, we want normal to be flat, predictable, safe, reliable. And would you really like it like that? I suppose my personality does choose the surprises, I suppose. I'm not so keen on shocks, but again, that's just perception. You either get surprised or shocked. Surprise is from the love frame and shock is from the fear frame. And we can choose. And it's not about, and there's this thing about spiritual bypassing or emotion, or this bypass, let's just generalise it, bypassing thing. That bypassing reality. No, it's about acknowledging where reality is, my reality, and what came to mind then was that people say, oh, you're not living in the real world. Well, actually, everybody's real world's very different. There's no such thing as common sense. Because what's common sense in this country is not common sense in another country, and all of that sort of malarkey. So, yeah, took myself down a lovely little thought process there. So, today, just for today, maybe even just for an hour, or maybe even, no, I'm going to say just for a moment, just check in and see how you're thinking to yourself. What are your thoughts? If you were to say them out loud, which as you get older we tend to. It's my beloved there, look. We're going out, we're going for a cup of coffee. We're going to try somewhere new, and it's got a little farm shop attached to it, so we're going to go see there. So I better go on that note. I've enjoyed that chat. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Yeah, Norman, Joy, Audrey. Love you lots. Bye, honeys. Bye.